I think we're ready. It's 7 o'clock.
Okay, here we go.
All right.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Deb Deegan. I'm a member of the Wilton Lions Club. Many of you have been corresponding with me lately. And I'd like to welcome you to our annual candidate night. This is being recorded. And in the interest of making it easier for everyone to hear, please mute yourself unless you are speaking. So I'd like to welcome all the candidates that have joined us for both the town and school positions. And I would like to introduce our moderator, Mr. Bill Keefe.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm William Keefe. I serve as the town moderator, but I'm here on a private capacity for the request of the Lions Club. And I welcome all the candidates tonight. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to give each candidate 3 or 4 minutes to tell us who they are, what they're running for, what's important to them, what they hope to accomplish. And we'll just go through based on sort of the order in the ballot. And then we'll do I think we have one school board candidate tonight. We'll hear from her. And then I've got people have been sending in questions and I'll be asking the questions. Unless there are questions, I was thinking we ought to probably start with the first candidate on the list, who's Bill Condra. Bill, are you with us?
Yeah. Good evening. I'm Bill Condra, and I'm a candidate for election to the Wilton Select Board. My wife and I have been residents at the same address in Wilton for the past 40 years.
Speaker, shall I do that?
Do you hear me? Okay, thank you.
We can hear you, Bill.
Okay, I have a record of service to the town of Wilton that spans from 1999 to 2017. My service began with being the building inspector for the town of Wilton for about 8 years. I served as a Wilton Water Commissioner for 3 years, and I served 10 years on the Wilton Select Board. I was 3 times elected and 1 time appointed. I served in the New Hampshire House of Representatives from 2010 to 2012 in District 4, representing the towns of Wilton, Lineborough, Temple, Mount Vernon, and New Boston. In 2017, I retired from public service in order to accept an advancement opportunity in my professional life, in which I am well established at this time. However, in the recent couple of years, I have come to miss being of service to the town, and I'm looking for this opportunity to ask you for your support and to once again elect me to the Wilton Select Board. I brought only one issue with me this evening. I've been away from the board for almost 5 years, I guess. And so I'm a little behind the queue, but I've recently heard a lot of discussion about the town of Wilton considering going to a SB2 form of government. And I think for our town, that would be a mistake. I would really like to preserve Wilton's town meeting form of government. And so that's about the end of my spiel for the evening. I look forward to questions. Hopefully I have answers, and thank you.
That's Matthew.
Bill Condra.
Thank you very much, Bill. We'd next hear from DJ Garcia.
Before DJ speaks, may I just remind everybody, please mute, because we hear everything you're saying to each other. And you may not want that. Thank you.
I won't acknowledge you. I'll just talk right over the top. So you don't have to mute if you don't want to, but you really should because it is difficult to understand. So thank you, Mr. Moderator, for recognizing me. My name is DJ Garcia, and I am a candidate for the open select board seat. So I did prepare some remarks here, so I'm just going to go ahead and deliver them. My name is Abdullio Daniel Garcia Jr., but I'm known around town as DJ. I've been part of Wilton since 1994 when my parents were working at Wilton House of Pizza. This is where I got my first taste of Wilton's charm as I frequented Main Street events and Old Homes Day as a young man. Years later, my parents bought Wilton House of Pizza, where I worked for them for 15 years, serving Wilton and the surrounding communities. In 2012, I bought my home on Peed Hill Road with my wife, Amy, where we live with our son, Cameron. And in 2013, we made the decision to purchase Wilton House of Pizza. During our time as business owners in town, we have donated and contributed to almost every club, event, and festivity that has happened in town. I have served on the Main Street Association, on the Wilton Budget Committee, and I've also been the elected treasurer since 2019. I am a serial entrepreneur, with the restaurant being my third company that I've owned, and I have a degree in finance from the University of Arizona. I'm also MECP certified installer. I consider myself a businessman and investor, so I stay in touch with the economic trends and world business news. I am seeking your votes for the role of selectman because I love Wilton and its community. I've had the pleasure of meeting and befriending many of its citizens over the counter at Wilton House of Pizza. We have so much unrealized potential in Wilton that I hope to apply my business acumen to and help our community flourish. I want to work with all the committees and the boards to lower costs and think of each sector as its own town small business. We need better communication in our town's government, so I hope to be able to lead that effort. I care more about the small businesses in town than any of my opponents. And I also want to increase our commercial tax base and footprint with smart investments and a welcoming environment for entrepreneurs and businesses. But this isn't just talk. My wife and I purchased 15 Main Street in 2019. We completed a full renovation and have welcomed 4 new businesses into our community: the Lost Siren Hair Studio, Where Eagles Dare Tattoo, Ashley Wadley Photography, and Unified Medical Management, all of which are thriving and successful in downtown Wilton. Lastly, I want to increase involvement and engagement with the community so that we can have a more diverse voice in town politics. So my motto for my campaign is I'm prepared for leadership. And that's because I honestly believe that I'm ready for this challenge. Wilton needs a leader like me, who's not afraid to work hard and make a meaningful difference. I'm well-read, I'm well-spoken, and I'm experienced in a variety of local and national issues that affect each taxpayer in Wilton. My experience as a businessman and operator uniquely positions me to solve the town's most complex issues. I will bring new energy, I will bring passion and care to the select board and help it reach its highest potential by leading with my own example. I plan to keep normal business hours where I can work with the administration staff to handle the business of the select board and meet with department heads, citizens, and businesses frequently. A vote for me is progress that Wilton desperately needs. A vote for me is in the best interest of your family and your neighbors. And a vote for me is the only obvious decision because I'm prepared to accept it and I'm prepared for leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DJ. Kelly Sue Bosono.
Good evening, all. I'm Kelly Sue Wilsono. I am the first select woman that's been serving the town of Wilton. I take great pride in being able to break that glass ceiling where this has been an all men's club. I have been a resident in Wilton since 1991. My husband and I bought the house here in 1994, 95 area. We've raised 3 of our children here, and I have grandchildren that are also in the school district. I am rerunning for the select board position. I feel that my work is not done. I am the representative to the budget committee. the MAC base, which is our communication for emergency services. And we have a lot of work to do with that, whether we go out on our own or if we can continue staying as a joint venture with other towns. I am also on the Ambulance Advisory Committee, and we want to make certain that the ambulance stays intact and starts bringing in a little bit more revenue than what we have been. I'm very aware of many of these situations to better help these areas to bring to our town to reduce taxes. I also am on the Highway Department Building Committee, and that is something that our town desperately needs, is to have this highway building, but we want to do it in the most efficient way and be able to look into the future to have this building set up for a 30 to 50 year outlay, and not just something that's going to last us for a couple of years. I'm also on the PSAC committee, which is the Public Safety Advisory Committee, and that has all of your emergency services on it. And I'm able to bring different concerns back to the board so we can discuss it and be able to continue moving things forward. We have 2 bridges in towns that is looking for repair. We also have the reservoir that we're trying to improve upon so that we can bring that forward to the townspeople for some of their input on how they want to move forward. Do we want to keep it as a resident only? Do we want to open it up to other towns coming forward? So all of these different things I have my hands in, and I don't feel that I've done my full share of input and making things move forward. I enjoy working with the residents. I receive many phone calls. I receive visits at the house from residents with different concerns. When something comes forward to me that I feel needs to be brought to the board's attention, I am the spokesperson for that resident. There's times that residents don't feel that they can speak out their opinions because they are criticized for how they believe. And that is one thing I stand behind all of our residents, that if you have something to say, please do not be afraid to say it. And if you do not feel you can state what your feelings are, I will speak for you so that other people are aware of what is going on. That is how the SB2 came about, because I've had residents come about 2.5 years ago, came to me. They said they really felt that our town was ready for it. Whether I believe in it or not, it does not matter. This is probably the hardest part of being a select board member, is when you have to remove your own feelings, your own beliefs, because you have to bring forward what your town people are asking for. And so therefore, I was the spokesperson for the SB2 that is coming before the town at the town meeting. It does not mean that I'm for it. It doesn't mean I'm against it. And I have made that very clear when we had our public hearing, but I am speaking for the residents that feel they will be criticized if they brought themselves forward to ask questions. The accomplishments that have happened is we've gotten this the Stagecoach Road Bridge project completed. We also worked with economic development and have been able to complete the Riverwalk Phase 2 by Stony Brook, and which is a really nice little area for some relaxation next to the river. I want to continue working with the committees that come forward to improve our town, the Economic Development Committee, the Main Street Committee. There's many of different areas. Our Heritage Committee also brings forward and keeps our town informed of what's happened in the past to keep it moving forward. We were a very thriving little town back in the 90s, even more so earlier in the years before my time here. And I would like us to continue being that thriving town, keeping our residents friendly, not picking at each other. I just want to be able to continue with that small town atmosphere. I feel like I'm a good listener. I'm very frank. Sometimes people don't appreciate me being as honest with my verbiage and my feelings, and I just don't know how else to do it. I am not political, and I think everybody here can attest to that. I am just a resident here that wants to continue keeping our town the way it is going and be there for our residents when they want them. So I'm asking that you vote for me for the re-election and we can continue moving forward. I appreciate it. And I want to thank the Lions for hosting this gathering for the candidates night. And I want to wish all of the candidates good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Gail Higgins, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Good evening.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So, hi, I'm Gail Higgins. And before I begin, I would like to thank the Lions Club for organizing this event. I know it takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make something like this run smoothly. And the townspeople and, I as a townsperson and as a candidate appreciate it from both sides. So I am running for the position of town treasurer. When DJ mentioned the position would be open, I offered to run given my multi-term experience on the town budget committee and my 15 years of experience with bookkeeping. I've also been a multi-term member of the Sauhegan Finance Advisory Committee. I will admit, I did live in Amherst for a little while, but was very happy to move back to the lovely town of Wilton. I've also been the treasurer of several local organizations. And my hope with being the town treasurer is to keep track of all the money in town and make sure it's spent where it's supposed to. And that's the role. So I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gail. Diane Foss.
Yes. My name is Cynthia Diane Foss. And all my friends call me Diane, but I believe on the ballot it will say Cynthia Diane Foss. So just don't get confused. It's still Diane. And I am a speech pathologist. This is my 38th year practicing in the field. I have lived in Wilton since I got married in 1997. Trent is my husband. He's on here somewhere. And we've been living in the same house for as long as we've been married. And Trent was living in town for a few years before that, maybe more than a few, maybe even 10. So we consider ourselves entrenched Wilton citizens. I decided to apply to run to be supervisor of the checklist because I guess there were a number of reasons. I know that today, as much as ever, I think communities are very concerned that the people that get to vote don't vote more than once and that they've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's so that they're eligible to vote. And I think that's very important. I think it's important for people to feel comfortable and know that the people who are supervising the checklist are honest, which I am. They need to be critical thinkers, which I am. They need to be people that can work as a team because there's not just one supervisor of the checklist. I think there was like one opening for this year, but I believe there are 2 others. And then you also work with the town office, you work with the moderator. So if there are any questions, it's not just one person's say. And I feel very comfortable with the idea of working as a team. When you're the supervisor of the checklist, I think in a nutshell, what you're basically doing is you're making sure everybody is eligible to vote. And I like the fact that it's written right out. You know, it's they tell you exactly what you need to be looking for. You need to be looking for a picture ID. You need to be looking for a driver's license. You need to make sure the domicile is Wilton if they're voting here. And I like the fact that it's kind of clear where it's written, and it's written for every town, but I believe it's the same for every town. So I felt that I would be very confident in being able to do that. I guess I feel that volunteering for the town is a lot of responsibility. I have volunteered to help count ballots before in the past, and I've always taken it very seriously. And I would take this position very seriously as well. So I want people to know that regardless of what I do in my spare time, you know, whatever I go out and volunteer for, it's got nothing to do necessarily with this particular position. I'm honest, I'm fair. I have a lot of experience with ethics because as a speech pathologist, I'm nationally certified as well as I'm licensed in this state and 4 other states as well. And ASHA, which is my national governing body, they have a code of ethics that's like this. It's huge, and they expect you to follow it. They expect you to follow it even if it means you're going to lose a job because of it, because they expect you to adhere to certain standards. So the standards that you have to follow as the supervisor of the checklist, I don't feel are that new to me. I hope people would look at me as somebody that if they did have any questions, they could approach me. And if I didn't have the answers, there would be other people that we could reach out to and find the answers. So I hope you'll consider voting for me as supervisor of the checklist.
Very much, Diane. Joanna Eckstrom, are you with us?
Hi, everybody. I'm here.
Hi, Joanna.
Hi there. I'm Joanna Eckstrom. I live on Laurel Hill Street in Wilton, and I don't know if we're running a contest here or what for how long we've lived here, but I moved to Wilton in 1976 and came here from Lowell, Massachusetts, which was a really large town, large city compared to Wilton. What we love about Wilton is its rural atmosphere and its proximity to the big cities without having to go too far. I've been involved in the Wilton community, in government activities, and volunteer activities really for about 30 plus years. I'm a former tax collector for the town and town clerk. Jane and I started at the exact same time. I've been on the Zoning Board of Adjustment since 1988. I served as library renovation campaign director and have been a clerk for the Wilton Waterworks and the sewer department for the past 20 years. I was recently appointed as a sewer commissioner to fill Tim Mortfeet's place after his resignation last year. And today I am running for the final year on his term as a sewer commissioner. I believe that I'm highly qualified to serve this role, even though I do not know how to clean out one sewer, but I do know the administrative functions that are necessary to be sure that we continue to operate economically, correctly, environmentally friendly, and one of these days I might go out and check the sewer systems. If I do not know how they work and somebody calls me with a question or a problem, I do know who to direct them to get their problems resolved. we've got some exciting opportunities and challenges coming to us in the next few years. The Wilton Sewer Department is a co-permittee of the Milford Wastewater Treatment Facility. And we have obligations that we must meet. And the biggest thing of that is to make sure that we operate in an efficient and environmentally friendly manner. And this costs us money. It costs users money. And it's a hard sell when we need to raise rates, but in order to live up to our obligations, we need to do this. I'm looking forward to it. As I said, I serve as the clerk for both the Sewer Commission and the Water Department. And this is a chance now to have my vote, my opinions count, and my counsel followed. And I thank you for your vote.
Thank you very much, Joanna. Corbin Williams, are you with us?
I am here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
So this year I'm running for re-election to the Water Commission, and I'm unopposed, so I'm not going to take up a lot of your time, but I do want to tell you how proud I am of our water system. And it's a great little water system, and all you have to do is drink tap water in some other town and know just how much better our water is than almost everybody else's. But that's not something that the commission really can take credit for, because we have a great water superintendent, Mike Bergeron. He's the one that does most of the work, but we kind of get to take the credit. But like I said, I'm running unopposed, so unless you all write in Aquaman, I figure that I will get reelected. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Kermit.
Hey, Bill, you there? Can you let people talk about the supervisor of the checklist comments?
What we're going to do is we're giving everybody a chance to sort of have open introductory comments. And I think we're through with all town offices. Randy King sent in a statement that Deb Deegan's going to run. And then I want to hear from Darlene Angeloni, who's running for the school board.
Good enough. Sorry, I was unconcerned about the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
There we go.
Have I missed any candidates who are present for town offices? If not, Deb, would you be kind enough to read Randy King's statement, which
Certainly.
is mercifully short?
Yes. To the residents of Wilton, Randy was unable to attend tonight. He had planned to be here. My name is Randy King, and I am running for the planning board for the one-year term. I currently sit on the planning board, having replaced Stephanie Kirsch last spring. I have been a general contractor since 2005 and have been in the building industry since the late 80s. My wife and I moved here in 2017 because of Wilton's charm and rural character, and wanted to be a part of that small town feel where you get to know your neighbors. While I am trying to learn from and assist the quite talented group of people who currently serve our community, my interests are in trying to help the town of Wilton with paced residential growth, while also trying to protect its environment. Existing residential privacy, land values, and enjoyment of the land that we have chosen to make our home. With the approval of the voters of Wilton, I would like to complete the last year of the three-year term I stepped into last spring. Thank you, Randy King.
And thank you, Deb, for reading that. I think we've heard from all the town candidates, and I think we only have one school board candidate. That's Darlene Angeloni. And are you with us?
Yep, I'm here. Okay,
Well,
thank you.
Well, good evening. And perhaps you could tell us where you're from and who's eligible to run for the seat you're running for as part of your introduction.
Yeah, so I'm running for the at-large position because I actually live in Lineborough. So to share a little bit about myself, my family and I moved to Lineborough in 2017. At the time, I had two boys, grade 3 and 5, that were going to Frez. And I'll be honest, when we first moved here, I was concerned about them going to a smaller school. I didn't know what to expect, but was definitely very pleased and pleasantly surprised. They loved it because they got so much more attention. We could come from North Carolina. We were in Merrimack for a little while, so much bigger schools that they had been attending. But I've been so happy with our schools. I, as a parent, definitely appreciate what a great school system we have, especially with all the stuff that's been going on the last couple of years. I have family that live in other towns in New Hampshire. You know, their kids weren't going to school full time last year. When it came to even going remote, it took, you know, I think we got the notice on a Sunday, and by Wednesday, our kids were back online learning. A lot of other places in New Hampshire, it took weeks for them to get up and going. So hopefully people appreciate how great our school system is here. And I guess, again, on the same note, after kind of all the chaos of the last couple of years, I decided I wanted to get more involved in our community. I have a position right now on the school board budget committee. But, you know, to be honest, I'm not much of a budget person, so I felt I could hopefully make more of a difference getting more involved in the school board itself. I guess for me, the two things that I'm hoping to accomplish is, you know, helping just to make sure that we continue to provide the best education possible for our kids. I really hope to kind of look at curriculum and make sure we're focusing on the basics for our kids, you know, making sure that they're learning the skills, you know, math, reading, spelling is a big thing that I think we need to focus on, you know, to prepare our kids for when they go out into the real world. And also, I would love to get back, you know, to having the kids not do as much online, but go back to bringing textbooks home and having worksheets they bring home. I know as a parent, you know, I talk to my kids, I try to stay involved in what they're learning, but because they're not bringing books home, I don't really know like what they're learning. So when it comes time to even trying to help them with their homework, it's more difficult as a parent to do that when you can't see what the teachers are teaching them. Another thing that I want to focus on is community involvement. I think there's a lot of great people in the community that I think would love the opportunity to volunteer, you know, at different school events or just come to the different events. And I think just being on the school board, I can kind of hopefully help kind of bring the community and the school together.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The format that's been set by the Lions, and as I recall, we've followed for a number of years, is people have been emailing questions into Deb Deegan for the last week or so. And I've been sort of sorting them out and trying to come up with some questions, and I'll be asking the questions of the candidates based on the written questions we've received. This is the electronic version of the 3x5 cards we've used in past years. So the first topic that a number of people ask questions about, and I'll paraphrase them, particularly to both the school board candidates and also to Darlene running for the school board. What's your position on SB2? I know Bill Condra and Kelly Subosno spoke briefly about it during their opening comments. I guess I'd start with DJ. I don't recall you talking about SB2, but would you like to tell us your opinion?
Yeah, I can, Bill. So my feeling, one of the highlights of my speech was that I care very deeply about Wilton and its community, just like every person who is present here today. And I believe that SB2 removes our ability to assemble as a community and share ideas with our neighbors. I was at the public hearing that happened last week, and I am in the minutes as speaking opposed. I also solicited the board to remove it as a warrant article from the town meeting, which they did not take a vote on and chose to continue to put it forward. So I do very much oppose SB2.
Thank you. Bill Condra, did you want to add to your comments about SB2? You spoke a little bit about it before.
Well, I've always thought that SB2 serves the big city better than the village. The smaller communities seem to do well, speak well, raise their kids well under the town meeting form of government. When you get above 6,000 people, maybe a little bit more of a big brother approach is appropriate. But in this instance, for the town of Wilton, I believe that the smaller form of governance is best.
Thank you, Bill. Kelly Sue, you spoke a little bit about SB2. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Yes, I do. As a sitting board, we did decide to leave this on as a warrant article, and it's very important. I feel it's very important to let the residents speak. And if the board would have shut that down and not allowed this to go forward and be a warrant article, we were just telling the residents that, yeah, we hear what you would like to see and what you would like to possibly do, but we're not giving you a vote. We've taken your voice away from you if we do not put it forward on the warrant article. And that is the reason I abstained from the vote, because I feel it is very important to let our residents join in and let them make the decision. I did not feel that as a board member, I should try to flex my muscles and say, no, quiet down, I don't want it, so I'm not going to bring it forward. So that is one of the reasons that this has been brought forward. And I said it at the beginning, I'm the voice of the people. There's maybe only a handful of people, but it needs to be brought out there. There might be more people than you realize that are interested in this. I do believe that the town meeting is something that we have traditionally done. It's very successful, but it doesn't hurt to hear other opinions. And it's not wrong by letting them have an opinion and have their voice heard. So that is the reason that I voted to abstain, so that this could go forward and let our residents speak to what they would like to have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm not aware that there's anything on the WLC agenda this year, warrant this year for it, but Darlene, do you have an opinion about whether SB2 is appropriate for the Lineborough Cooperative School District?
No, I've attended past couple of years that I've lived here. I've gone to the budget meetings every single year. I've spoken up a lot at the meetings, and I think that's very important to have people be able to kind of get up, express their concerns, ask questions. Even just the school board meetings themselves, people always get an opportunity to speak up. And I think that's very important for people to have their voices be heard.
Well, thank you. I've got a question for school board members. This is probably the usual long-winded question, which says, every survey has shown that Wilton residents value our small rural character, yet they also want to keep taxes low. How would you balance the potential residential or business expansion with the need to preserve what makes Wilton special? Let's start with Bill Condra on that one. Bill, were you able to hear the question?
I'm not sure I heard all of it.
I think if I could rehash it, the question was, how do we balance our small rural character with keeping taxes low? And as a sort of side to that, how do we balance the potential for residential or business expansion with the need to preserve what makes Wilton special? I know it's a big question.
Well, with business expansion, that means moving off into a different real estate footprint. You won't do a lot of business expansion beyond what already exists on Main Street without getting off of Main Street. We have a zone out on 101 that for a number of years, while I was active on the board, there were several attempts to bring business into that zone, but for a variety of reasons, not one of them ever came to fruition. But there is that business zone that exists. You promote people's interest in locating in that zone, the tax revenue will help offset the monies that we would have to spend to bring it up to some semblance of, for a better expression, code, bring it up to the current code of ethics for business positioning. The taxpayers, if you give them enough of the information, the business strategies that you're trying to get to come into town, I think would go along with a modest increase in taxes. And then the revenues that are generated from taxation on the businesses, I think the town of Wilton could accept a substantial increase in business. That's it.
Thank you, Bill. DJ, what are your thoughts?
So my thoughts are, first of all, it's a great question because it's very difficult to balance the small number of taxpayers and even smaller number of businesses that we have in town to support the expenses that we have both in our school district and as a municipality. So to directly answer the question, how do you balance it? It's impossible. Wilton will never be big enough to have the type of commercial tax base or footprint to offset the residential taxes enough to make a big difference. I think we can certainly stand to grow. And that's actually one of the things that I said in my opening statement was that, you know, I want to promote growing our commercial tax base and growing our footprint to have taxpayers who maybe don't put kids in school, maybe don't use all of our rural streets and our rural neighborhoods, but instead are out on the 101 corridor that Mr. Condra had referenced. And I just want to speak about that too, because while it is zoned for business, it seems that it stagnates for some reason. And it's not clear to me why. I believe there's something in the zoning, because I do know have some knowledge of people who have presented projects out there that have been turned down for a variety of reasons. So I think that, you know, while there is this area that is earmarked for commercial growth and expansion, there is something that's limiting it, which I would like to figure out what that is. So that would be my answer, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you, DJ. Kelly Sue, do you want to weigh in on that?
Well, it's kind of a hard subject because taxes affect all of us, and the increases really affect the majority of us that are hitting our retirement. And I'm included in that because I'll be on a fixed income here in the next few years. So it is a huge concern of mine that the taxes continue going up and we have nothing to offset it. So being on the budget committee has also opened up my eyes to see where we can help our departments stay within a certain percentage of increase. It's just a very hard balancing act. I do think that we could do with some commercial, but I'm afraid that if we allow too much commercial to come into the town, we're going to lose our small town rural flavor that everybody enjoys. We do need to have more families move in with children to kind of offset some of that school cost, because if I'm understanding it correctly, right now we're paying a high cost for each of our students going to school, and that is a huge part of our taxes. If we have more students, as silly as it may sound, I think if you have more students, your cost actually is less. You may be able to get more state funding to start helping with that. We have different grants that we can apply for to help offset the taxes that would be used to do projects such as your bridge aid. We just finished the Stagecoach Road Bridge, and that was an 80-20. So it was only 20% of the taxes versus 80% of a grant. Those are the type of things that we need to look at to be able to keep our costs down, and that by keeping the costs down does keep our taxes at a reasonable rate. With the revalue that we just did on the town, some people's house, most everyone's house has valuation has gone up, but it's also kept your taxes either level. Some of them have gone, but we have had a very low rate that have increased in taxes. So it's just a very difficult subject, and it's one that would help if volunteers got involved in the budget process. That is where you can really help figure out where some of these savings can be. Get on the planning and zoning boards so that you can help make some adjustments so that it can help our town have some of these commercial properties opened up. I know 101, like both Bill and DJ have talked about, a lot of the times people are staying away from it because they don't have sewer and water out that direction. So maybe it's something we need to talk to sewer and water to see if it can be extended out in that manner. So there's all these different avenues that we can look at that can help with the taxes. But again, it's a very touchy, hard subject that there's no great answer for. So I'll leave it at that. Thank
very
you.
much. I'm going to cycle back to the select board candidates in a couple minutes with a question about the highway garage. But in the meantime, I've been asked to grill our lone school board candidate with a couple of questions. So Darlene, I think I'll turn to you.
Okay.
Somebody wanted to know, have you been talked to, contacted, or received support or training by any special interest group in New Hampshire, such as 603 Alliance, Defend Our Kids, etc.? If so, please describe which ones and your interactions with them. And then I've got a follow-up question for you.
Okay. I did attend a training that 603 Alliance did, and all that honestly was just, I've never run a campaign before, so it gave tips on like how to run a campaign, if you're designing your signs, if, you know, I'm a small town, so it didn't apply as much to me, but probably more some of the stuff was focused, like if you're in a big city like Manchester and you have to do a lot of campaigning and going out and fundraising, and if you know you're going to be running against like 10 different people for your position, so that's what I took the training for, just to learn like how do I campaign. I didn't even know where to start, so it was definitely useful as far as that, and that's really just, you know, and just to kind of get insight on you know how to approach it, and you know, knowing that we're in a small town, like, well, what's good for a big town isn't necessarily good here. So I've had a few of my signs that I put out, most of them when the snow melted got blown off, so I apologize if any of my signs wound up in anyone's yard. I tried to pick some of them up yesterday, but that's the only group that I've kind of worked with just to get training on how to campaign.
Maybe you could just briefly elaborate. What is the 603 Alliance? What do they want or do? Or
I was just, from what I understand, they're just more, it's around, you know, campaigning and encouraging people, like how do they campaign. That's all I got out of it.
Okay. What would, you know, what training or skills, experiences do you have that would be beneficial for achieving the school board's mission? And in what way do they apply to a school board member's duties?
Okay. Well, I guess just personally, I'm a parent, so I have the personal connection of kind of wanting to make sure that like our students are getting the best education possible. Like I said, I am very excited about getting, you know, more involved in the schools here. I think we have really great schools. Again, I've had my kids, you know, in North Carolina, Merrimack, New Hampshire, and here. So I'm definitely impressed, not coming in to try to make huge changes with the school, just to kind of try to go in and get more involved and see how we can make it better. And like I said, also get the community more involved. I also work full-time as well. I've worked at Fidelity since 2016 when I moved back here. You know, a lot of stuff that I get involved with has, you know, project management. So I'm used to like looking at a bunch of different things that we're trying to look at processes, look at things, and, you know, what are areas that we can improve on, or there's things that we're doing, you know, that we can continue doing it the same way and how to make it better. So that's what I'm looking kind of to bring, maybe a new perspective, a fresh perspective to the school board. Again, as someone that's kind of newer to the town and is had my kids at different schools. I know a lot of people have been here and their kids have been just at the school district. So I've seen what other school districts how they kind of work. So I can bring that perspective in as well.
Well, thank you. All right, back to our select board candidates. The following person who has absolutely no opinion about the issue one way or the other writes, our Wilton Highway Department of Public Works has a critical need for a safe building for our employees and protection of our most expensive equipment in town. Will you put this on top of your priority list this year so we can have something to bring to the town to vote on in 2023? I think the fair thing, Bill, would you like to start?
Oh, sure. I always like the idea of spending or not spending, and this need for a house for all of our expensive toys. Of course, the guys that drive the snowplows are not going to like me saying they're toys. It's a lot of hard work in the Public Works Department. But at present, the town of Hollis is going through a similar set of circumstances. Their Public Works building is falling apart and in some corners falling down. And so they're working on funding strategies and how to raise money, and their plan is to build a new Public Works building. The town of Wilton's going to have to do that too. For years and years and years, every time I drove over there to get a pail of sand or just drove by on my way to Milford, I thought, you ought to knock that building over and do something different. We need a new Public Works building. I'm a little new to the game after having a 5-year absence, but I would work very hard to strategize on funding for a Public Works building, on getting a supervisor of the works to spend the effort in developing plans, finding an architect to design a building, looking at the design needs early on. I don't know, like I say, I'm kind of out of the loop on that, but is anyone currently working on a design strategy for the building that we think we want to buy? I'd take an answer on that if anybody's got one.
Bill, a follow-up question to that would be, do you have an opinion as to where this, if we build this new building, where it ought to go?
I do not immediately have an answer to that, where to put the building. We own the land that the old building is standing on. I am not sure of the size of that lot, if they could raise the new building and then tear down the old building, or if we need a piece of land to build the new structure and then move into it and then decide what to do with the mess we call the Public Works barn now.
Thank you, Bill. DJ, is this something you want to bring to the town to vote on in 2023? And follow up on that would be, if so, where should it go?
So the immediate answer to this is that there's already a committee that has been established, which Kelly Sue is part of, and some other attendees are part of as well. And this committee is hopefully going to bring forward a needs analysis to determine what size garage it needs to be, what types of vehicles are going in there, where the employees will actually be inside of the building, make sure it's heated, because right now the one that we currently have is not, and make sure that it's safe, because right now where we store the salt maybe might not be the best location due to its proximity to Frog Pond. But this also kind of contradicts the answer that I gave earlier, which is, how do you balance the rural characteristic of our town and the need for upgrades and changes to our infrastructure. I mean, we have countless things. I mean, Kelly Sue and I have had conversations about this personally, where, you know, there's so much deferred maintenance and improvements that have happened and that have not happened in this town, that eventually the future taxpayers are going to be on the hook for. And that's what we're looking at here. We're looking at a building that should have been replaced 15 years ago, that is currently now in such bad repair that we have to make a decision, and we're asked to do it by 2023. So I would challenge that 2023 to have a building erected is borderline impossible with today's business, with today's materials demands, with contractors demands. It's borderline impossible. Beyond that, how we pay for it, the town is going to need to bond that out. So that is another issue where we have to prove our ability to even get that loan, which, as the treasurer, I would question if a bond bank would actually approve us. And I have the knowledge to be able to make that statement. So will it happen in 2023? I'd love to say yes. I'm very eager to work with the committee that is currently putting forward a plan that will show a blueprint and the meets and needs of what's going on there. However, I don't think it'll happen in 2023, but I do acknowledge that the building needs to be replaced because the conditions are very unfavorable for the staff there. Thank you.
Thank you, DJ. Kelly Sue, is this something we're going to bring to a vote in 2023? And if so, where should it go?
So I am the representative on the committee. We have a great group of people that have a lot of great ideas. And yes, I do believe that this could be brought forward to the town next year. It is something that we definitely need. If anyone has gone up to the town barn, or if you haven't, by all means, go up there and talk with Brian and have him give you a tour. They do not have any heat in that building. It's all wood heat. They do have a backup that does not heat the building, but it'll keep the chill off and not freeze the pipes. There's the other bays that the trucks barely fit in. And they sometimes will scrape the blade as they're going in. The guys have to work out in the weather to repair a vehicle. So having the building stay at that location is not ideal. That is only a 2-acre lot. We are hoping that once our new highway director starts work as of March 7th, he will also be on this committee to help us and guide us in an area so that we can make certain we get the proper location, the proper size of the building without draining everybody's pocketbook. I have been researching this for probably 2-3 years of different building types that we can bring into the town that is going to be something that will last over many, many years and not be $1 million building. So I'm hoping that, yes, this can be brought to the town next year. This is not something that we should ever turn our heads and say, well, we got to take care of other areas first. If you think about it, highway is your first responder. If they don't have those highways cleared out and those highways repaired for our fire, our police, and our ambulance, it's putting the other emergency services at risk. Highway is our first responder, right along with the rest of those. And we have to start looking at it and treating it like that as well. We cannot keep them on the back burner. We can't keep it to where, well, we've worked like this all this time, so we'll just learn how to continue working that way. That's not the right philosophy to live by. Those are the town's employees, and we need to give them the respect that they deserve and give them a work environment and a safe environment to work in. And so I would hope that everyone thinks of ways that we can either raise money, different grants that we can maybe go for, as well as we will probably have to bond. We have looked at, the committee has gone through every parcel that the town owns. We do not own any piece of property that is large enough to put a highway garage on, as well as the equipment. We are looking to maybe have a 5 to 8 acre lot. And so it looks like we're going to have to buy some kind of land unless somebody wants to donate land. We don't want to put it too far out because otherwise it's going to be too much on the equipment coming into town. So all of these different things play into that highway garage, but it is something that the committee works with. We have great concern of making certain we put it at the right location without spending a lot of money or throwing money out the window. So it is something that I am really hoping and pushing for to be on the ballot for next year.
So do you have any, what kind of range of costs are we looking at for such a building?
Well, when I was looking at just the building, this does not include anything to do with land or any sewer, water, or anything like that. I was looking at buildings that would be anywhere from 300,000 up to 800,000. So Brian does not feel that we would have to spend all of that kind of money on a building. But the most economic for a highway department would be something like a Morton building. That a Morton building, you can look at the Good News Bible Church, which is also a Morton building. There's the Northeast Diesel up on 101, and it used to be J&D's Towing that is out by the Wilton area. All of those are Morton type buildings. So that's the kind of thing that I've been looking at. And we do have some designs in mind. Brian did put something out there. So we do have a design that we can kind of go off of. But until we have a location and know what we can present, we really don't know how much it's going to end up costing in the long run. But we do have an engineering firm. We will have an engineering study once the committee is able to give more information so that we are not throwing money out the window. We don't want to just hire an engineer and say, okay, this is what we want, take it and go with it. We're trying to have the residents and this committee look at what is best for the town and try to save money in that respect so that when we give it to the engineer, we can give him the specs right along with it. So that's pretty much what we're doing.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to shift back to the school board. Darlene, I'm going to pick on you for a minute. And I've got a couple questions here, both sort of involving the divisive concepts. And I think they're variations on the same question. Somebody asked, what is your position regarding so-called divisive concepts in the 2022 state budget? And the second part of that would be, do you support or oppose the concept that teachers should be free to develop their own curriculum, free of interference and censorship that some people would like to oppose? Would you be able to comment on those issues?
Yeah, and again, my understanding with the divisive concepts law is it just basically that we don't want teachers or schools basically teaching our kids that either one race is inferior to another one is superior, or that one particular race should be seen as oppressors. And I agree with that. I know a lot of it, you hear the term CRT, which whether people believe in it or not, I guess I look back to my childhood and a lot of the way that I approach a lot of the curriculum when I talk to about like getting back to the basics, is I think about like how a lot of us are probably taught when we grew up. Like we were taught American history. We were taught, all the amazing things that our founders did, and what the early settlers went through, all the sacrifices and everything. And the principles that our country was founded on that made it such an amazing country to live now. But we also learned about like the darker times in the history of our country, like we learned about slavery, we've learned about like internment camps. And so I think that it's important to teach our kids, all of that history. I guess, my personal beliefs comes into it is, we're not a perfect country, but we're a country that allows for freedom and allows people to have like personal liberties. And so I think a lot of, as a parent, my concern sometimes comes in is, it's my job as a parent to instill values into my children. It's my job as a parent to, instill beliefs in my children, where it's not a matter of, I don't think our history needs to be taught, The concern I think comes down to a lot of people is that we don't want it to turn into where, you know, educators are basically, you know, pushing their personal beliefs onto people. Parents want to preserve that right, that, you know, they're students, and that's another reason why parents want to know what's being taught in the classrooms. You know, when I talk about curriculum, again, like I said, it's getting back to the basics, but I will ask my children, you know, like, what are you being taught? And, you know, what are you learning in your history classes, different classes like that, wanting to make sure that, you know, political stuff is not coming up in the classroom, because that's not the place, the classroom. Again, it's outside of school. I don't think that's something that should be approached in school. You know, as far as teachers, I think it's gonna, you know, as a parent, I'd want to know, like, what are the teachers teaching our children? You know, I don't think that teachers should have to worry about feeling like they're being censored. And I guess maybe it comes down to the topics that they're talking about. I know, you know, when sensitive issues comes up, you know, that when I think I can't remember if it's 4th or 5th grade, where, you know, the girls go in one room and the boys go in the other room. And I was one of the parents that went, because I wanted to watch the video. I wanted to see, like, okay, their kids are going to learn about it. I learned about it. The girls went in one room, the boys went in one room. You know, it was embarrassing, but, you know, I wanted to find out. I've heard horror stories from friends at other schools as to what is in these videos that we're showing our kids, because it's important to, you know, the kids learning that their bodies are changing, but you got to draw the line somewhere. And there's certain things that I don't feel like it's the school's place to be teaching our children. It's up to the parents to kind of introduce that stuff when they feel it's appropriate. A lot of it, I think, you know, comes around to, like, what's age appropriate for the children that they should be teaching at certain levels. I don't, you know, I've gotten to know the teachers. I've never felt during my time here that that's something that has been an issue with our teachers. I think our teachers are very respectful of that in our schools and our the people that run this school. But it is, you know, it's kind of a hot topic in our country today. And, you know, that's definitely something that, again, like I said, as a parent, I'm concerned with, and I would want to, you know, as a school board member, make sure that what's being taught to our kids is age appropriate. And it's something where it's not trying to take over the parents' job of what the parents still have rights to decide what they want their children to be exposed to when it comes to certain sensitive subjects.
Thank you. I'm going to switch subjects with you, Darlene, for a minute and say, do you feel that the level of school spending today is too high, too low, or about right? And as a follow-up to that would be, if you feel it's too high, are there things you feel we could maybe do without?
And I know one of the key things, and when I got on the budget committee, is one of the first meetings I let them know, as a taxpayer, as a parent, I felt that, like, after the meetings that I had gone to, the way the budget needs to be presented better. And I've kind of seen the way the budget's going to be presented as a budget committee member this year. And I feel like it's the best one that I've seen so far in all the meetings I'm going to. I think it's important for everyone in the community to get a clear understanding is there's a lot in the school budget that we don't really have a choice on, whether either, like, the state mandates it, the federal government mandates it. A lot of the school budget and the big costs come around, like special education. So if we have a child or a student come into our district, we have to pay for the services. So it could be $100,000 for one child. And that's not something that we have any wiggle room on. We have to pay it. So when it comes down to it, when we got kind of down to the budget, and I don't want to, like, you know, step on anyone's toes and talk about it too much, although I believe it was presented, there's really not that big of a percentage. I mean, it might be like 10%, if that, of the budget that we actually have some kind of wiggle room on. A lot of it, you know, again, we have no choice but to pay for it. I am conscious of trying to make sure that, you know, can we look at grants? Can we look at, you know, other opportunities where the community can get involved? Or maybe there's people, you know, not that we're just gonna have random volunteers coming into the school, but are there different programs that we can offer to our kids, you know, especially in high school, like, you know, internships or, you know, apprenticeship stuff, where there's probably a lot of people in the community that would love to have students come, you know, come help, come work with them, you know, give people the opportunity for kids to kind of see, like, what would it be like to be in this job or that job? And it doesn't have to cost anything if people are willing to volunteer their time for that. I think a lot of people would love to get more involved with, you know, like, you can do fundraisers for different things, like with the sports teams and stuff. I know we don't have, you know, large sports teams at the school, but that's another example, I think, where, like, you could get more people involved that might be willing to volunteer, or, we can have different fundraisers. I know I helped out with one the PTO did for the 8th graders, and we made like $400 that day, because I think people are always willing, to help out the kids and give money for stuff like that. But again, I am conscious of that, like wanting to make sure that if there's ways that we can cut spending, but wanting to make sure that we're not sacrificing the quality of our kids' education. One thing that I've asked about, and I'm still, hopefully if I get on the board, I can dig deeper into it, is when you look at like technology, using a lot of technology, I know there's a large cost to it. Would it cost more or less to have the kids have actual physical textbooks, which I would love to get the kids going back to, but if it's a lot more expensive than technology, I'm going to weigh that as well. But I think from what I understand, it's actually cheaper to get a textbook than to have to buy like the e-version of the book. So it's stuff like that I think there's, we can find a balance of making sure they're getting a good education, but there probably are areas that we can cut costs as well.
Well, thank you. We're slowly, we still have time to take more questions if somebody wants to email them into Deb Deegan. We're slowly, I think, coming to the end of the questions that have been submitted.
Bill, rather than email them, since we're on Mike's page, the best thing is to just go into chat and type your question. Anybody who's on Zoom, there's a chat box, you can type a question. And you can pick to send it to Bill so everybody doesn't see it, or you can send it to everyone, either way. Everybody
Thank
hear
you.
that? Everybody, I know somebody had a question earlier for Diane, or was asking about. But there's a chat box at the bottom.
I'm not seeing anybody, any chat questions. Let's give it another minute or so. And,
Yeah, okay.
but if not, then we would I have one sort of follow-up final question for everybody, and see, put them on the spot. I'm not seeing anything. I guess what I'd like to really ask each person is, and I think that's a good question, what is the single most important thing you want to accomplish if elected? I mean, everybody's got one thing that's really stands, you may have a laundry list, but of what you'd like to accomplish, but what is the one thing you would like to do if you feel that's a fair question? And if you don't feel it's a fair question, you can simply say, well, there's just a lot of stuff. But Bill Condra, do you want to start off?
Well, I'm kind of on the sideline. I enjoyed the years that I spent in service to the town of Wilton, and I would try to pick up where I left off and move forward. So for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been just buried in construction of new homes and zoning challenges, in and out of courtrooms over various flaws in people's behavior as regard to the zoning ordinances. So I'm kind of at a loss to just pick one thing up and say, yeah, I'm really concerned about this. I'm really concerned about being able to come back into service for the town of Wilton. And I would take up whatever issues that currently confront the town of Wilton and give it my just total and best effort to resolve them. That's it for me.
You're muted, Bill.
I've gotten a couple questions as we've been speaking. And Bill, if you don't mind, somebody asked. Oops. Can you hear me?
Who are you talking to?
Bill, I had a follow-up question that somebody sent in. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can.
So- Somebody asked, what would you, and I'm going to ask the other candidates too, I'm not picking on you.
Yes, you
What
are.
would, you came first, you're on the top of the list. What would you do to encourage more affordable apartments and housing for our local workers?
That would take a lot of effort on part of the planning board to strategize the use of existing available land that can be developed for housing use. We can look around to our neighbors, and again, I can point to the town of Hollis. They encouraged development. They changed their ordinances and lifted the restrictions on the builders' rights. Builders' rights said any builder could build 4 houses in town in a year. And that's not enough to encourage a developer for, say, 40 units of workforce housing. The town of Hollis voted to repeal their builders' rights and neglected to put anything back in its place. And so a couple of major developers came in. The first one in the door bought a few existing parcels of land and came up with a planning board approved subdivision for 50 units. So to get workforce housing identified, you have to find a piece of land. Your zoning and planning board have to strategize a plan to host workforce housing. I don't think we currently have that in Wilton, but that's what it takes. You have to have zoning and planning approved by the town that encourages workforce housing. And then you have to find the pieces of land that can be developed, and can you provide flush services, meaning can you get the sewer in there and can you get water in there? Is there adequate proximity to transportation? The town of Wilton does not have public transportation. And if you're theorizing on developing workforce housing, you're looking at 40 or 50 units and maybe more, because the federal government that provides grants, offers money, you have to build so many, and you can't build more than some. So find the land area that's available, find the developer that can put that number of units out there. But if you develop 50 units of workforce housing, and then you go find 50 working people to put in them, there may become a demand for public transportation. Now, the city of Nashua has public transportation. Town of Milford, Amherst, and Merrimack, the towns in between us and the big city, none of those towns have public transportation. So I always have a difficult time in working my way through a conversation on workforce housing for communities the size of Wilton. We have a population of about 6,000 people, and to find a piece of property that we can say, okay, we'll do workforce housing. Well, that's 2.5 kids per unit. So 50 units, that'll be a substantial demand on our public schools to take that many new children. Typically, when they build a workforce housing development, they build it all right now, where the builders' rights restricted building to 2, 3, 4, depending on what town you're in, 2 or 3, 4 units. But if you're going to go for workforce housing, you have to build that all right now. You can't build 3 workforce housing units this year and 3 more next year. They're going to want you to put up 2-unit and 3-unit structures and see all 40 or 50 of them materialize in the first year and a half, 2 years. So 50 new families or 40 new families at 2 kids each, that's 80 kids to 100 kids. So I appreciate the concept of workforce housing, but I'm not sure it fits for small towns. I consider Wilton a small town. But if the state said we have to, then the state needs to provide a break in the regulation that says you have to build so many units to be labeled workforce housing. They would have to say, okay, maybe 25 units. Well, that's a little bit more doable in a town this size. But to take on a major workforce housing development, I believe would cost us more than we would ever benefit. That's it.
Well, thank you, Bill. DJ, would you talk about, I think really the topic is both affordable apartments and workforce housing. What should the board be doing to encourage both? Or either?
Well, I think that my experience as an employer in the area code of Wilton, or the zip code of Wilton, should hold volumes here. It's true that there is no workforce in our town. The workforce that is here is traveling outside of Wilton to earn their paychecks. We've lost 3 of our largest employers in town in the last 2 to 5 years, that being Label Art, Burback, and Pep Direct. Those were long-standing corporations that gave hundreds of jobs, and my business has withstood all of these losses and seen how it has affected our town. More businesses are closing. If you look around, a lot of the existing real estate and commercially approved areas are in disrepair. I can say that because I just purchased a building down on Main Street that needed a lot of money to be brought up to what today's standards are, and it is still not handicap accessible. We have not finalized that step, but that's very important to me to make my property on Main Street handicap accessible. So how do we bring more housing in to have more employees to have jobs at the employers? Well, the thing that's missing, I believe, is the employer aspect. I know that the question that came up in the chat had said that there was 30 people or 30 employers seeking employees in one site pertaining to Wilton. I have personally, in my restaurant, Wilton House of Pizza, we've been actively hiring since June. And the only applicants that we can really seem to get are students from the high school, which I love them. And I, have done my best to add to their education through hard work at a small town pizza restaurant. And it's very hard work. You should come try it if you need something to do on a Saturday night. But, it's the cart before the horse. And this is the issue that we have here. Like the pedestal I stand on and my position on this, and I haven't been quiet about it, is that I can't find employees. And if I do find them, they don't live in Wilton. Or they do live in Wilton, but they don't come from outside of Wilton. So to have people who are looking for a home or an apartment in Wilton to work at a job in Wilton, I just don't believe that demand exists. Unfortunately, maybe if some of the projects that have been discussed moving into the buildings that are to the buildings in the business locations that have been displaced, maybe if those come, to reality, then we will need housing for people. But honestly, my phone just popped up on WMUR that said, rents in Wilton, rents in New Hampshire are higher than people can afford. So how can Wilton expect to be able to provide affordable rent and a well-paying wage job when we don't have the housing or the employers? I mean, to me, it's a cart before the horse. You don't know which problem to solve first. So the right move is to take, the 1,000-step journey with one step. And how do we do that? It doesn't matter which way, but we have to make a decision. So I agree we need more housing in this property. I'm afraid it takes a lot of money. And this money is not flooding into Wilton with corporations. It's not flooding in with private investment. And frankly, I think that our zoning and planning rules are a little prohibitive to this effectively happening. So that would be my answer, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you, DJ. Kelly Sue, do you want to weigh in on the issue of encouraging affordable apartments or workforce housing?
I'll try to be short and sweet. I think it is something that we do need in our town. I think it would benefit having people who live here that can also work here. We, as DJ has pointed out, we have lost 3 major employers. However, we do have another business that has quite a few employees at the old Pep Direct. It's the Atlantic Prefab. And if we had housing here or in Lineborough, I think we would have a better workforce to work here in our own town. But in order to do that, I think we would have to work with a group of builders and have them really work close with us on how to bring it forward so it's not a huge burden on the town. But by doing that, we would also need to make certain that we have our infrastructure updated to withstand having the additional buildings into the water, sewer, and so forth. But it is something we do need in our town.
Well, thank you, Kelly Sue. I appreciate your brevity. I had a question about whether we should establish an infrastructure fund to handle matches for grants. And I think this is directed again at the school board candidates. Kelly Sue, do you want to start off on that?
I can. We do have this on the warrant article for this year. What this is whenever you go for a grant, a lot of times it'll be a grant to where you have to match a certain percentage. Like I had mentioned earlier on the bridges, it was 80-20. If we go for an economic development type of grant, sometimes those are 50-50. So in order to move forward to have that grant be able to be applied for, we say that the grant is $100,000. So we would need $50,000 in order to even apply for that grant. If we do not have that money already set aside so that we can say, yes, we've got this money to move forward, please give us that grant. That's where this capital, the CIP funding would help if we had that money set aside already so that we would know how much money we can go for as matching a grant. If you don't have this fund set up, then we have to look at it as a board to say, okay, yes, we can support your efforts in moving forward with this grant, but that means that we have to pull money from all these different departments and from different line items so that we can take that money to give to the committee or the department who is applying for that grant. So in my estimation, this is a very positive warrant article that the town does need so that we can move forward to get these grants to help improve our town and not cost the town 100%, but by matching these different grants, this money, having it set there, is going to help us in the long run. So I do support having this fund set up.
Thank you, Kelly. DJ, did you want to weigh in on an infrastructure fund?
Yeah, I can be brief with it. I did vote against this at the budget committee, because I serve on the budget committee, and we have to go through and present our recommendations for town meeting on warrant articles. I was somebody who voted against this for wording. I felt that the wording was not clear enough, because it did not specifically say that it was for grants, and it did not specifically say which types of grants those were. And even if it had, I'm more concerned about who's presenting the grants and the fact that the select board would be the final authority to make the decision on which grants get funded and which ones don't. To me, it creates an ability to scratch backs and shake hands behind doors and get your projects pushed forward, which I'm not in favor of. I'm in favor of transparency. I'm in favor of in the public eye, and I'm in favor of bringing everybody's opinion to the forefront so that decisions can be made objectively with the information that's available. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, DJ. Bill Condra, what do you think
Yes,
about an infrastructure fund?
During the 10 years that I've served on the board, capital improvement plans were always in the fore. We're buying fire trucks and police cars and ambulances, and capital improvement was one of the tools used to raise funds. I like the sound of capital improvement account to help secure grants. But I certainly agree with DJ. We want to know who's participating and what their thought processes are and how it's going. But the setting aside of funding for that purpose is something that is worth considering.
Well, thank you, Katie. You're welcome. Everything's locked up and the heat's been turned down. So whatever you have to do downstairs.
Okay, whatever that was. So I would support a capital improvement account for grant funding.
Thank you,
But
Bill.
as a member of the board, I would be looking really close
No, who's the
at
other?
what the application is and determining that, as DJ said, the language is correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I think it's a question for Darlene, but I'd be happy if anybody else wanted to weigh in on it. Somebody asked, are you concerned about education freedom accounts and how that could affect the Wilton schools and homeowners' taxes? Darlene, do you have want to weigh in on that?
I don't really, I mean, honestly, I think those are education freedom accounts are a good thing, because again, it gives parents the choice of, where they want to send their kids. I don't know like how many people within our community would want, if given the choice, to send their kids elsewhere. I think I shared, we moved here and I was concerned initially coming in like, oh, it's a small school and it won't be as good. But actually I found the opposite, where I've been really excited and my kids love it. They even said that they like, the one-on-one attention. They like the smaller classrooms. I think that's a definite benefit that we have going for us here, that we are a small community. So you're not going to have, a 1:30 ratio, teacher to student in your classrooms. You have the smaller classrooms. And even I was, and I think, again, that's something that we need to share with our community and share the great things that our schools are doing. Even just looking at, I was impressed. I went to the move up night for my son, who's my older son that's in middle school, that's going to high school, and was very impressed with even just all the different, courses that they have available to them. I wasn't sure. And there's things in place where it's like, okay, if Wilton doesn't have it, they can go to Milford, they can go to Conval, they have options to get the classes that they want. So I think it's important, again, to let people know like how great our school system is, and talk to parents and develop, that communication between parents and the schools. If there are concerns, I mean, we're not gonna be able to meet all the, the requests that we have. We don't have the budget or the population to have like a bigger sports, program here at the schools. But, when it comes to just the education, which is what the school is responsible for handling, I think we have a really great school here. And I don't know, I think maybe a lot of people that aren't happy with the schools are going to homeschool them, or I know there's some people that do send their kids to different schools and you have to pay for that. So I don't know. My understanding of the Freedom accounts, and again, I'm not sure if this is 100% correct, is it would be targeted. You have to be at a certain income level to get funding, and it's not going to be like the full amount. It would be a certain amount that you could get to put towards schools, but that's my understanding of it.
Thanks very much. It's starting to get a little on the late side here. I'm thinking I'm just going to follow up. I'm starting to ask Bill Condra what single thing you guys would like to accomplish in your respective positions. So I'm just working down the list. DJ, is there one single thing you'd like to accomplish?
I wish I could say that there was a single thing. For me, I think that I would like to bring to the table the fact that Wilton is a fantastic community, and it is a place that you can come and live, and you can come and work, and you can come and be part of the community and build it with your neighbors. I think that's not happening here to the level that it once did. I know that I'm a lot younger than some people who are running for candidacy here, and when I was a kid, I remember going downtown to Main Street and seeing people walking and kids playing, and doors were open. And today I don't get that same experience. So for me, I would like to change the outward perspective of the way that people look at Wilton in the surrounding towns. And to do that, I think it's a lot of things, but the one element that I think I'll bring to that effort is that I'll take Wilton very seriously. When we are approached by other towns, and we're approached by state representatives, when we're solicited by DRA and Concord and revenue administrations and all the people that want to come and ask Wilton, it's time for us to speak, and it's time for us to be heard, and it's time for us to be taken seriously. So I think that would be the one thing I want to bring to the table, and one thing I want to accomplish is that Wilton is looked upon differently by its neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, DJ. Kelly Sue, what's the one thing you would like to accomplish?
Well, I don't know if I have just one thing. My main goal is the highway department having a new building. But other than that, I think the continuation of the policies and procedures being put in place. I think that select board has been working very diligently at putting policies in place so that we can follow all the RSAs and run the town the way that we are supposed to according to the law. Staying transparent, and my biggest part of being the select board member is being in touch with the residents. I like the fact that they feel comfortable enough that they can come and talk to me. I like being able to help educate them if they don't understand some part of the government that is operating. Some of the questions that have come to me is, what's the difference between the operating budget and the revolving funds? How are those two different and same in this, all in the same effect? So it's just the continued service to the people here in town, to let them know that it's a friend. I'm a friendly face, I'm a listener, and I'm a go-getter. I'm going to stand up for them and continue fighting with the policies and procedures and educating our people.
Thank you, Kelly Sue.
Yep.
Gail Higgins, is there one thing you would like to accomplish?
Yes. I would like to make sure that the people of the town have a way of seeing how their tax dollars are spent. So I would want to make sure that our financial reports are posted and available for residents, so they can make sure that their tax dollars are going where they're supposed to be going.
Thank you very much. Diane Foss, how about you? What's the one thing you like to do as a supervisor of the checklist?
I think for me, when I decided to throw my hat into the ring for this, it was basically the way I feel about anything I run for. I've run for school board in the past. And the most important thing for me has always been to serve the town. Excuse me. It's not easy to volunteer in town. It's not easy to find the time to squeeze in and help represent your constituents fairly. And I just felt that I could do a good job at this particular position. So that was the main reason. I'm sure whoever else has done it has been very competent. So it's, I don't have an issue with other people's competence. I just wanted to help.
Thank you very much. Joanna Eckstrom, is there one thing you would like to accomplish?
Yes, probably that is to educate the public in general about the importance of having a municipal sewer system as well as a municipal water system. Everybody in town benefits from both of those utilities, whether you realize it or not. You may be on the sewer system and you know that your crap goes down to Milford every month, every time you flush the toilet. But what a lot of people don't realize is that if you have a septic system, that ultimately ends up in Milford as well. We also have municipal services for our schools and all of our public buildings. And yes, a municipal system would help to attract new customers, new businesses, and industries to the town of Wilton. And I think public education is one of my biggest concerns and to making everybody in the town aware that whether or not you are paying or you are a sewer customer, you use that system and use it to the best effect. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Joanna. Kermit, is there one thing you would like to accomplish or?
So there's lots of things I'd like to get done, but we're not talking about those categories tonight, for me at least. We're talking about the water system. And the thing that I'd like to do, and it's not going to get done in a year, but it's something that we need to keep working towards, is to have a second water source. So right now, those of you who are on the water system, you will find that we have one set of wells. They are in one part of town. And if something happened, if an oil truck overturned in front of the water system, we might end up having to truck our water in. So I would like to have us find another set of wells or another water source that we can put wells in and add to our water system, have backup capability basically. And the advantage of that, in addition to protecting us in case something happened to the first wells, is that it would increase the amount of water that we had. So if we do, if the town does grow, if we build that workforce housing, or we build those facilities to house additional businesses to reduce the tax rate, or any of the other things we've talked about that involve the growth of Wilton, having water is key to that. And so we've been talking about the second water source for quite a while. The water department, the water commission has a significant amount of money set aside, but this is a very expensive project, and we will be looking for grants and other opportunities, not the infrastructure fund grants. These will be grants that would be matched by the water department if we're lucky enough to be able to get one of those grants. But we're working really hard to make sure that we can provide both ample water and protected water for everybody that needs it in town.
Thank you very much, Kermit. And last, but certainly not least, Darlene, what's the one thing you want to accomplish on the school board? By one thing, I mean the one thing that's your most important item.
I think, like I said, I really want to focus in on curriculum. I want to make sure that our kids are getting a strong foundation, especially when you're looking at math and reading and spelling. I think any parent can know that our kids have too much screen time. So I really would love to get our kids off of the computers and doing so much on like Google Classroom and get them back to having actual textbooks that they're holding. And they're working off of and writing in workbooks. And as a parent, so they bring those books home. So I know what my kids are learning, so I can help them learn. It's kind of hard when you're trying to teach your kids new math and you can't see what new math is. You don't have a textbook in front of you and you're trying to Google it like crazy. So I think I really want to, that's the big thing I want to focus on that kind of compelled me to want to run in the first place.
Thank you very much. Well, it's now about 8:45 and it is getting late and short meetings are good meetings. I get to have the final word and I got to tell you, just listening to the candidates tonight, I think Wilton is really lucky to have such a talented group of people running for these positions. And it is hard work to be a volunteer. And I'm really, as a citizen, I'm just very grateful. And I guess finally, Deb Deegan, do you have any final comments before we end?
I just want to thank all the candidates for the participation and thank you, Bill, for being our moderator. Great job. It was an interesting night. You're muted, Bill.
I think Bill said good night.
I did say good night. Thank you all very much.